My name is Mary Wiggin, and I'm pleased to be taking part in the Ottawa Children's Storytelling Festival for 2022. I have two stories to share today, and I am telling them from the unceded, unsurrendered lands of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation. I acknowledge that they are the first caretakers of this land and have been telling stories here since time immemorial. And we're going to head to China. One beautiful spring morning, two men strolled into the public square of a Chinese city. They were plainly dressed and looked like ordinary countrymen come into the city to see the sights. Judging by their faces, they were father and son. The elder, a wrinkled man, wore a scant gray beard, and the younger carried a small wooden box on his shoulder. When the strangers stepped into the square, they saw that there was a huge crowd gathered, for it was a feast day, and everyone was bent on having a good time. Some people seated at little open-air booths were eating and drinking. Others were buying trinkets from the street vendors, and some were playing games of chance. The two men seemed to have no friends in the crowd, but at last, as they stood reading a public notice, a bystander asked them who they were. "We are jugglers from a distant province," said the older man, smiling and pointing to the wooden box. "We can do many tricks to amuse people." Well, in no time at all, word spread through the crowd that two famous jugglers who could do wonderful tricks were in the square. Now it happened that the mayor of the city, the Mandarin, was at that very moment entertaining guests in the city hall. They had just finished eating, and the Mandarin was wondering what he might do to entertain his guests when a servant came over and told him about the jugglers. "Oh, ask them what they can do," said the Mandarin. "I will pay them well if they can really amuse my guests. But I want more than the old tricks of knife throwing and balancing. They must show us something new and interesting." The servant went outside and spoke to the jugglers. "The great man bids me ask you what you can do. If you can amuse them, he will bring his guests out here to the private grandstand, and you can perform for them along with this large crowd that's already gathered." "Tell your honorable master," said the older man, "that he will not be disappointed. We come from the unknown land of dreams and visions. We can turn rocks into mountains, rivers into oceans, mice into elephants. In short, there is nothing in magic too difficult for us to do." Oh, the Mandarin was delighted when he heard the servant's report. "Now we may have a little fun," he said to his guests, "for there are two jugglers outside waiting to entertain us with their wonderful tricks." So all the guests filed out onto the grandstand, took a seat. The Mandarin ordered that a rope should be strung across the square to make a space where the jugglers could perform in full view of the large crowd that had gathered. Well, for a little while, the jugglers entertained the people with some of the older tricks, spinning plates in the air, tossing bowls up and catching them on chopsticks, and changing one object into another. But at last the mandarin cried out, these tricks are very well, although a little stale. Do you have nothing new you can show us? Did you not say that you come from the land of dreams? What new tricks do you have to amuse us with? Your Excellency, we can do anything you ask, said the older man. There is really nothing in magic too difficult for us. Just say the word. The mandarin laughed at the man's boast. Take care, my man. Do not go too far, for if you lie to me, I shall take great pleasure in having you beaten. Every word I say is true, Your Excellency, said the old man. We can do anything that you ask of us when it comes to magic. Well, the guests laughed at that as well. They said, listen to the braggart. Oh, he won't be able to do what we want. But let's choose something for them to do. And they started to laugh and whisper among themselves. But then the mandarin said, I have it. Our feast was a little short on fruit, this being the off-season. Why don't we let this man supply us? Here, fellow, produce us a peach and be quick about it. What, masters? A peach at this season? Exclaimed the old man. Oh, that would be quite difficult to do. The guests all laughed and said, we knew it. He was just bragging about what he could accomplish. But then the son said, Father, you promised the mandarin you would do whatever he asked. If he demands a peach, how can you refuse to produce it and yet save faith? Listen to the boy talk, mumbled the father, but perhaps he is right. Very well, if it is a peach you want, a peach you will have, even though I must send to the garden of Western Heaven for it. The people stayed quiet, and the mandarin's guests forgot to laugh. They weren't quite sure what to make of that. But the old man fumbled around in the box, and he was still mumbling away to himself. Imagine wanting peaches at this season. What is the world coming to? But he moved around the magic plates and bowls that they'd already been using, and in a moment, he pulled out a skein of golden thread, fine spun and light as gossamer. No sooner had he unwound a portion of this thread than a gust of wind caught it and carried it up above the heads of the onlookers. Faster and faster, the old man paid out the magic thread, and it climbed higher and higher into the sky until, at last, no one could see the end and how far it had risen. Oh, for a moment, the spectators forgot all about the mandarin, the jugglers, and the peach. So enchanted were they by the flight of the magic thread. At last, the old man seemed satisfied with how high the thread had traveled, and he took the other end and tied it to a large wooden pillar on the grandstand. For a moment, the structure trembled and swayed as if it too would be carried off into the sky. The mandarin's guests turned pale and they clutched their chairs for support. but no one dared to say a word, not even the mandarin. Wow, that thread had gone way, way, way up. And now the old man said, "Everything is ready for the journey." "What? You will leave us?" said the mandarin. "I? Oh no, Your Excellency. My old bones are not spry enough for quick climbing. My son will go and fetch the peach for us. He is handsome and spry enough and clever enough to make his way into the garden of Western Heaven. Graceful, oh graceful is that peach tree, and a graceful man must pluck the fruit." Well, by this time, the mandarin and his guests were quite certain that the jugglers must be fairies. They were doing such extraordinary things. They must be fairies. At a sign from his father, the man tightened his belt, and then with a graceful gesture to the onlookers, he leapt up onto the magic thread, balanced himself on the steep incline for a moment, and then ran up into the sky as quickly as a sailor would climb a rope ladder. Higher and higher he climbed until he was no bigger than a bird ascending into the blue sky. Further and further he went. He was just a tiny speck on the western horizon. Oh, the people watched in wonder, but they also felt some unnamed fear, and they hardly dared to look at the old man who stood calmly smoking a long-stemmed pipe. Up went the young man, higher and higher and higher. And at last, the father seemed pleased with what had happened. He looked at the crowd and said, "It is coming. The magic peach will soon be here." Well, the crowd looked and looked and looked in vain, but they could see nothing happening. Suddenly, the old man put out his hand as if to catch some falling object, but still the crowd could see nothing. Swish, thud, it came like a streak of light. And lo, there in the old man's hand was a peach, the most beautiful peach the people had ever seen, large and rosy. A peach from the garden of Western Heaven, said the old man as he handed it to the mandarin. A peach in the second moon, and the snow hardly off the ground. Trembling with excitement, the mandarin took the peach and cut it open. It was large enough for all his guests to have a taste. And such a taste it was. They smacked their lips and wished for more, thinking that never again would ordinary fruit be worth the eating. But all this time, the old man had been staring anxiously into the sky. True, he had managed to produce the magic peach, but his son, where was his son? He shaded his eyes and stared up into the blue sky, and so did the people. But No one could catch so much as a glimpse of the young man. Oh, the father was becoming more and more anxious. My son, he cried. Oh, what fate has robbed me of you? Oh, would that I had not sent you on so perilous a journey. Who will look after me now? Who will look after me, my grave, when I am gone? Oh, the people were deeply touched by the old man's sorrow, and they strained to try and see the young man, but they could see nothing. Well, suddenly, the magic thread twitched, and then, without a sound, it fell from the lofty heights and landed in a golden pile on the ground. Oh, my son, said the old man. The story is clear now. Oh, he was caught trying to pick the peach in the garden of the gods, and they have thrown him into prison. Woe is me! Ah, woe is me! The mandarin and his friends felt terrible for the man, and they tried to comfort him. Take courage. He may still come back, they said. Yes, said the old man, but in what form? And then the people looked and saw the young man's arm twirling and spinning in the air. It landed at the old man's feet. Next came his son's head, the other arm, the body. Oh, my son, my son! With a great deal of effort, the old man set aside his tremendous grief and set to work, tenderly placing the parts of his lost son into the wooden box. Oh, my son, my son. Wow. By this time, many of the spectators were weeping, for there is no sight in China more sad than that of an aged parent robbed by death of an only son. They felt so terrible for him. No one spoke, no one knew what to say, except for one bright-eyed little boy. Oh, he was so concerned for the father and the lost son. Oh, Daddy, Daddy, has the young man gone away for good and left his poor father all alone? And the old man had laughed at that along with everyone else and tossed the child a coin and said, oh, the good boy, he has been well trained to love his father. But now here was the father so bereft. Well, the mandarin finally found his voice and said, come, let us give the old man some money so he can give his boy a decent burial. Everyone agreed, and at once a shower of copper coins landed at the old man's feet. And after a few moments, tears of gratitude mingled with those of sorrow. He gathered up all the money and tied it up in a large black cloth. And then a change came over his face. He seemed somehow to have forgotten his sorrow. He moved towards the wooden box and he lifted the lid just a little. And people heard him say, "Come, my son, the crowd is waiting for you to thank them. Hurry now, they have been very kind to us." And then the box flew open, and the young man climbed out of it and stood there bowing to the crowd. Well, at first, everyone was so shocked. It was totally silent. And then when it dawned on them what had happened, oh, there was an enormous tumult of shouting and laughing. Oh, they were just absolutely amazed. The fairies have indeed come to us. They have visited us. And now our city will have such good fortune. The mandarin stood up and thanked the fairies for their visit, their wonderful, wonderful visit. But even as he spoke, the box opened again. The two fairies stepped inside, the lid closed, and the box lifted off the ground above the heads of the onlookers. For a few moments, it went round and round and round in a circle, and then with a sudden burst of speed, it shot off into the sky and vanished from sight. And there was nothing left, no proof of the fairies' visit to the city. No proof except the magic peach pit, which lay next to the teacups on the mandarin's table. Well, from that day on, the mandarin and his friends who had tasted of the magic peach began to change their lives. Before the coming of the fairies, they had been quite greedy and unkind to others. Now they began to live their lives in a different way, and people were heard to exclaim, now we can respect these men, for we can see that they are fair in their dealings with us. And in a few more years, that city became the center of the greatest peach growing district in China. And even yet, when visitors stroll through the orchards and look up at the beautiful fruit, the local people might ask them, "Have you heard the story of the magic peach? The one that was the beginning of all our orchards? The beautiful magic peach from the Garden of Seventh Heaven." Was that a standing ovation or are you just tired? Now, I've got one more story. This one's a little shorter. And it's called The Empty Pot. And I wasn't quite sure what to make of that when I read the title. But I read the story and then found out. One day, a very, very long time ago, the Emperor of China announced a contest to choose the next heir to the throne. The Emperor was quite an old man, and he had no living son to take his place. For most of his life, he had been a lover of plants, so he declared that any boy interested in becoming emperor should come to the palace to receive one royal seed. In 6 months' time, the boy who could show the best results with his seed would win the contest and become the next emperor. Oh, the excitement! Every boy in China imagined that he could become the next emperor. The mothers and fathers of boys who were good at growing plants dreamed of living in royal splendor. On the day the seeds were to be handed out, crowds of hopeful boys thronged the palace, and each one went home with one precious possibility in the palm of his hand. And so it was with the boy Yun. Yun was already considered to be the best gardener in his village. Indeed, his neighbors would sometimes fight over the melons and the bok choy and the snow peas that flourished in his garden. Anyone looking for Yun would probably find him bobbing between the rows in his garden, pulling weeds, transplanting a tree so that it could catch more of the morning sun, or moving another to the shade. He too went to the palace, and he walked home with his one precious seed between his hands. He held it carefully so it would not fall to the ground, but not so tightly that it might be crushed. At home, he covered the bottom of a flower pot with large stones, added pebbles on top of the stones, and then filled the pot with rich, moist, black earth. He pressed the seed in about an inch below the surface and covered it with light soil. And then, every day, every morning, Yun and every boy he knew, and hundreds he did not, would water their plants and watch for the unfurling of the first telltale sign that the plant was sprouting. Oh, it was such an exciting time. Well, Han was the first boy in Yun's village to announce that his plant had sprouted, to the great excitement of his family and friends. And he said that he would probably, since he was first, he would probably end up becoming emperor. So he practiced his royal skills by bossing around all the younger children. Well, then, the next boy was Wang. He too reported that his seed was sprouting. And then Manchu made the same announcement. Yun was puzzled. None of these boys were as good at growing plants as he was, but Yun's seed did not grow. So he repotted his seed. He did, because all the other boys now had sprouts coming forth in their plants, in their pots, and they all carried their little baby plants outside so they could bask in the warmth of the sun. And the boys built stone fences around the pots and watched them, guarded them carefully, for there were always mischievous children running around, and they might easily knock over a pot. Well, and by this time, those plants were beginning to shoot out their very first real leaves. Yun was busy repotting his seed. This time, he dug up the best and richest black loam he could find in his garden. He took every piece of soil and ran it through his fingers until it was like powder in the pot. Wonderful, wonderful place for that seed to grow. He tucked it into the pot, and then he watered it and watched over it each and every day. But still, Yun's seed did not grow. Well, then huge stalks began to appear in the pots of other boys in Yun's village. He fell into despair. The other boys made fun of him now, saying, as empty as Yun's pot, if they had no more treats in their pockets or had finished up their bowls of rice. Oh, poor Yun. He decided to repot his seed another time, and this time he put dried fish all through the soil as fertilizer. But still, Yun's seed did not grow. 6 months passed. The day was approaching when the boys were to return to the palace to have their plants judged by the emperor. Han, Manchu, Wang, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other boys got ready for that day. They cleaned their pots until they shone. Oh, they wiped down the large leaves on their plants till they glistened, and they prepared themselves by dressing in their best clothes. "What should I do?" cried Yun to his mother and father. My seed did not grow. My pot is empty." "You did the best you could," said Yun's father. And his mother added, "Yun, just take your empty pot to the emperor. You know you did the best you could." Yun walked down the road to the palace with his empty pot, while boys getting ready for their triumphant return to the palace strode to his left and his right with their large plants in their pots. At the palace, the boys lined up in rows with their plants and awaited judgment. The emperor, wrapped in a beautiful green silk robe, strode up and down the rows of boys, examining every plant as he went with a furrowed brow. When he came to Yun, he looked at Yun's pot and said, "What is this? You have brought me an empty pot?" Well, it was all Yun could do to keep from crying. "I am sorry, Your Imperial Majesty, but I planted your seed in the finest soil I could find. I watered it every day. I took such good care of it. And when it did not grow, I repotted it in new soil, and I even repotted it again. But still, it did not grow. I am sorry. I did the best I could." Yun hung his head. When the emperor heard Yun's words, a smile slowly spread across his face, and he put his arm around the boy's shoulders. "I have found him," declared the emperor. "I have found the one boy truly worthy to become emperor. Where all you other boys got your seeds from, I do not know, for the seeds I gave you had been cooked, so there was no possible way they could grow. I am so proud of Yun to have such courage to appear before me with the empty truth. And now I reward him with the entire kingdom and declare him the next emperor of China."